Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome to this week's editions of the Principal's Office podcast. I am so glad that you are here with me. For those of you who don't know me or just catch me the first time, I am Jamal Maxim, an igniter of champion leaders, and my assignment is to ignite you in your leadership assignment to fulfill it. And I'm also do it from the kingdom perspective because I am also what I would call a supernatural coach, meaning that I help you understand leadership, but also understand the supernatural dynamics of leading. And so I am so glad that you are here. I have a lot I want to share. A lot is on my heart today. I have a podcast schedule for tomorrow, and then I also have a pop-up schedule where I'll be talking about some just certain topics that are really been just prevalent, and especially in the education space and the leadership space. But today, I'm going to talk to you about the highest form of leadership. A lot of times we as leaders and in leadership, we hear these phrases about leading at a high level or what's the highest form of leadership. We hear about John Maxwell talk about the highest form of leadership, which is personhood or pinnacle. You know, we read the books and they talk about level 5 leaders. Barrett's has his own style of leadership that he talks about. So there are different forms of leadership that everybody is discussing, and everybody has their own idea as to what the highest form of leadership is and what it looks like. But the problem is everybody wants to achieve this high form of leadership, but there are so many different definitions of what it is and what it looks like. It's hard to figure out what that is. I was looking in the textbook earlier for this class that I'm teaching at the collegiate level, and one of the things they said is that leadership is hard to be defined, because so many people have conducted research and done studies and developed their own definition of leadership. And so how can you operate in something that's not clearly defined? How can you reach something that's not clearly defined? And so what I'm going to do today first is I'm going to help you define this thing. And so very quickly, leadership is this. This is how I define it. Leadership is influencing people to take action to accomplish the vision. It's more than being an influencer. It's more than being in position. It is not just a career choice. It is a calling, and it is an assignment that comes from God. And when you accept that assignment to lead, then you are accepting the responsibility of influencing people and connecting with them so they will willfully choose to follow you and take action to accomplish the vision. Now, the key to that too is people that connect to you, they must be clear on the vision, and they must recognize how the vision of where they're serving aligns with their personal purposes and destiny. A lot of times people join places for pay or because it's famous and all of that, and then they get there and are unhappy simply because they recognize that the vision of the place I'm serving does not fit my life's purpose, and now there's a conflict. But then they don't want to leave, so they stay, which forces the leader, if the leader doesn't know themselves, they start trying to jump through hoops to get the person to like them. And so there has to be perfect alignment within any place. You need to have your vision clear. You need to have the people you are leading clear on the vision, and then they need to be able to make the decision. Yes, this vision fits with my purposes, my destiny, my personal values and goals. And then they have to come into and learn the culture and be willing to be a part of that culture, enhance that culture, transform that culture if needed, and then carry out the work of the vision. So we want to get that straight before we start talking about even the highest level or the different levels of leadership. Because just like I said earlier, every leader desires to lead at the highest level possible. We hear it all the time. You want to lead at a high level, and you can't, if nobody's following you, then you're just taking a walk. And we hear all of those type of comments and statements that are made, but we have to recognize too that leadership is a choice. And so as leaders, as we're developing to lead at a high level, we think about what's the pinnacle, what is the ultimate response or the ultimate impact that I could have as a leader. John Maxwell says it this way: pinnacle leadership is when people follow you because of who you are, which extends beyond your skill set and what you can do for them. Now, some research calls that traits-based leadership, where they say these character traits is what makes you a leader. But reaching the pinnacle of leadership is beyond your character traits, it's beyond your skill set, it's beyond what you do for people, it's beyond your ability to produce. It's simply because of who you are. The essence of your character is why people choose to follow you. And that's what is described as the pinnacle of leadership, or, early versions of John Maxwell's work may call it the personhood of leadership. And so the question now becomes, how do we allow people to see who we are so that they will choose to follow us? You hear me say choice a lot, because that's not talked about a lot in leadership. A lot of times people would tell you, if you do these things, then people will follow you. Or if you follow these leadership theories, people will follow you. Yes, leadership has theory and there's a science to it, but it's also an art, and I would say also a spiritual gifting. And when you put all of those things together, you have to always consider that people have the right to choose, and some folks would choose to follow you because of the vision, because of who you are, because they're in alignment, and other folks would choose not to follow you because they'll say, okay, this doesn't fit me. And then some people, a third category of people, may choose not to follow you simply because they don't like you. And is nothing that you did or could ever do to fix that. They just simply got something going on and they just simply choose to not like you. And so that's why I talk a lot about choice, because you want to lead the willing and help the unwilling find a place to go. And so here's the thing. So how do we allow people to see us so they can choose to follow us? And many people, out of that quest or that desire, they try to speak the love language of people at work. You hear a lot about the 5 love languages, and you hear a lot about, the 5 love languages at work and what that looks like in a workplace and all of those kind of things, or what does it look like when you're leading people, which is good in theory and it has some good concepts to it. But here's the thing. If that love language that you're trying to speak is not something that you naturally express, your efforts could be mislabeled as inauthentic, because they see you struggling, trying to operate in a way that's not naturally you. And then so they're going to say, oh, this leader fake, they're not authentic, they're just trying to use, they're politicking, they're a politician. You're going to get that, because people can tell authenticity. And when a person isn't authentic, it interrupts or disrupts the flow of influence and the building of trust. So a lot of people try to do that and express themselves, but they still have to find that balance of, how do I meet people where they are and while maintaining who I am? That is the key. I'll say it again. There's a delicate balance of meeting people where they are, but also staying true to who you are. Because the minute you stop being who you are is the minute you stop really leading. Because you're not leading if you're conforming to someone else's definition of leadership, or if you're conforming to other people's ideas, or you're doing what I call performance-based leadership, where it's like you're an entertainer and you're just doing all these things to try to get people to like you. Because that's not what leadership is about. Leadership is not about likes, it's about influence, and it's about trust. Now, here's the other thing. Too many people view leadership like it's a stairway. They view the levels of leadership like it's some kind of stairway similar to a corporate ladder. See, the corporate mindset has kind of diluted people's leadership perspectives, and they think, oh, I had to climb a corporate ladder. Now, when I get to leadership, some people think either they're done, or they think that, okay, they have to climb through these other levels of leadership. So they'll read a John Maxwell book and see there's 5 levels of leadership, so they think they have to climb them. Or they'll read from good to great and think, oh, I need to become a level 5 leader, so I have to climb. And so that mentality translates into leadership development, and people think they have to climb to this level of leadership or work and I don't want to say put effort in, because you do need to put effort, but they feel like they have to work and earn their way to certain levels of leadership versus just influencing their way. There's a difference between working and earning your way to certain levels of leadership and influencing your way to operate on certain levels and increasing your impact. There are two totally different things. And so you don't want to get into the mentality of works and toiling and struggling in order to get people to like you or follow you. All right, so I'm gonna pause right there for a second, and I just want to remind you, because I didn't say it at the beginning, those of you who are watching me on the video platforms, remember to comment, like, share, and save this video, and share, and really let people know that this video is adding value to you and is a blessing to your life. Those of you who are in the Clubhouse app live right now in the Igniting Champion Leaders Club, thank you so much for being in the space. Feel free to share it out. Hand raising is on. You feel free to comment in the comments, and after I end the video section, you'll be able to come up and get the live discussion going. If you're on video, get in the Igniting Champion Leaders Club once this video ends so you can participate in the discussion and talk with me real time about this content. All right. Oh, and by the way, this video podcast is sponsored by Lead Like a Champion. And so if you want to accelerate your leadership, you want to connect with the company Lead Like a Champion, which I own, by going to jamalmaxim.org. All right, so now let's get into the next part. So too many people view leadership as a ladder and something that they have to work to and work towards, and they view these different levels of leadership like it's a ladder that you have to climb. Now, here's the thing. The highest level of leadership is not achieved by earning it or going through each level one thing at a time. It's achieved through your growth personally and your ability to engage in what I call presence leadership. I'll say that again. The highest level of leadership is not achieved by earning it or going through each level, climbing your way through leadership. It is achieved, though, by growth, your personal development, but also your ability to engage in what I call presence leadership. And some of you might be like, well, what is presence leadership? I haven't heard that before. Of course, leaders must be present, when you are leading, especially in a school setting. When you're leading a school setting, there are 4 types of walkthroughs you need to do. You need to get with me to learn those 4 things. But part of you leading is being present in the moment with the people you're serving, having your presence seen everywhere that you're leading, all over, like in a school setting, all over the building. You're in classrooms, you're out there at morning arrival, you're out there at dismissal. They even see you doing lunch and doing recess. I mean, it's like you're everywhere. It's like you're a ninja. And so that's what I'm talking about, present leadership. But presence leadership is higher. Last week I took time to break down this psycho-spiritual leadership that's out there, where people are talking about engaging in that to stop the quiet quitting. There's some research out there by a dude named Fry about spiritual leadership and how that breaks down, and I talked about that last week as well, where people are, using this form of leadership, which is recognizing the calling of leadership and the destiny of people serving, which is, I get it, but the highest form of leadership is presence leadership. And sometimes people may say, well, that sounds offensive, or you're talking about God and all of these things. Look, you can't talk about leading at a higher level without talking about God. You can't talk about spiritual leadership without talking about the source of that spirit that's trying to help you lead. And so one of the things that I recognized is, because when I began talking about this month, I did get a little backlash from some school principals, but that's okay. I'm not sweating them, because here's the thing that I recognize, and here's how you have to be as a leader. Number one, you have to be clear on your direction as a leader, because sometimes the people you are around might not understand. When I first started talking about business leadership principles being integrated in education, there were some school leaders that were telling me business does not have a place in the school setting, even though everything they were required to do was taught and talked about in these business leadership principles, but not in the educational leadership program. And so the things that have been required, the business world would like, look, this is what we do. But educational leaders were expected to walk it out without getting the how. And so people thought that was strange. And so now people are recognizing you have to lead beyond yourself and lead beyond research, because we're in times that are unprecedented, where the research doesn't apply. And so there's recognizing the need for self-care and recognizing that we are spiritual beings. And so you can't talk about being a spiritual being without recognizing the source of all spirit life, which is God. And so some people might get offended, but that's on you. That ain't my problem. And so I'm gonna tell you, presence leadership is this. It is when you allow the presence of God to impact your decision making, the culture, and the climate of where you lead. Period. It is recognizing that his presence upon your presence is the igniter of influence. I say that again. When you engage in presence leadership, it's when you allow the presence of God to impact your decision making, the culture, the climate of where you lead. And it is recognizing that his presence upon your presence is the igniter of influence. Meaning that when I spend time with God, his presence not only is with me, but is on me. And when I am present in places as a leader, it is his presence that moves people to want to listen to what I say, and it ignites my influence, because there are too many people trying to lead without the presence of God. And they are leading coming from places of meditation and other things. And what I'm telling you is their leadership isn't working. And so we have to lead in a way that works. And that's why you hear me talk about kingdom focused leadership a lot, because that's what I did. Now, a lot of people may say, well, aren't you talking about religion and all of that? No, I'm not. Which is why I posted last week. I'm not religious and I'm not spiritual. Here's the thing. Religion will confine relationship with God to a worship experience. Spiritualism would tell you that you can be spiritual and it not affirming to a religion, and you need to watch your energy, and they equate that with emotional intelligence, which is not the same thing. And then they talk all of that, but they don't talk about source. Kingdom leadership recognizes the importance of being emotionally intelligent and nurturing your spirit and caring about the people you serve, helping them recognize destiny, but also recognizing source and allowing that source to be God, period. And so presence leadership is a part of kingdom focused leadership. And it is possible to walk it out in a business context and in the school context and in other contexts. When I turned around schools, and I have a reputation for doing it, I did it because I engaged in presence leadership. I would walk into a school and I wouldn't automatically assume what needed to be done. I would go back, I would take notes, and I would pray about it and ask God what needs to be done at this school to transform it and to cause student growth. He would give me the strategy, and then I would again get people on board and implement the strategy, and boom, we would see results. Period. It wasn't that I was such a genius. It was because I knew how to hear. The genius thing about me is the fact that I know how to hear God, and I know how to allow God to show me how to utilize my skill set and everything I've learned in college, all the degrees I got. He shows me how to apply all of that and how to use my gifts and how to use my experience in the present context so that I can create some results. Because a lot of people have so much schooling, but they don't know how to put theory into practice. And so they're full of head knowledge, and they can quote every podcast about leadership, or especially in schools, they can quote research that's been conducted from the past 15 years, but don't know how to make it apply to the current situation. And if you cannot apply what you've learned to your current situation, you are not going to be effective and your leadership is useless. And so you don't want to have useless leadership or ineffective leadership. You want to lead at a high level. And so leading at the highest level is that presence leadership. And so I'm going to give you two keys for those of you watching the video on how you can engage in presence leadership. And then those of you in the VIP, we're going to talk about it some more, because I'm going to take that presence leadership to another level and talk about how do you engage in the glory of God, which is the essence of who he is, and how that comes out in your leadership. All right, so here are the two keys. Number one, you need to prioritize your physical, mental, and spiritual self-care. We hear a lot about self-care. We hear a lot about physical self-care. I need to work out. I need to eat right, which is true. Mental self-care. I need to relax. I need to take time off, which is true. Your spiritual self-care comes from nurturing your relationship with God. I don't say source. I don't say universe. I say God. I choose to believe that the universe does display the splendor of God, but it is also a created thing. And I choose to go to the creator than the created thing. The universe cannot will anything, and the universe is not close to me. God is, because his presence is with me and causes me to be present in my leadership. Now, which leads me to the second key. Spiritual self-care involves spending time in God's presence, not as a to-do list to say you did it, but out of relationship. Because as you are spending time with God and developing relationship, you will recognize that he is going to speak to you about your leadership assignment, because it was his idea before it was yours, and he's going to give you the strategy necessary to be successful. He's going to show you how to deal with the people who are choosing not to follow you. He's going to show you how to win people over who simply, they're just on the fence and they can be won. He's going to show you how to implement strategy to cause exponential growth in the place you're leading. Because God loves everybody. He doesn't hate anyone. He hates evil. And so, which is a difference. And so, because God loves everybody, he's going to talk to you about everybody. The people you are leading, whether they are believers or non-believers, whether you're in a school, a business, or a coach, business coach, or a consultant, whatever the case may be, wherever you are leading, God is going to speak to you about that. Because that is the whole focus of kingdom focused leadership and presence leadership. All right. So those are the two ways that you can engage in that, so you can lead at a high level, because the only way people will follow you because of who you are is when you submit who you are to who God is. And then they can make the choice because they will see something in you that is greater and beyond you. But the more you try to exalt, I don't want to say exalt yourself because that's a church phrase, but the more you try to pump yourself up or lift yourself up or position yourself, the more people won't follow you, because you will come across as self-serving. All right, so I know that I'm not going to say I hope. I'm just telling you, I know that this content really was beneficial to you. I want to let you know that those of you watch me online, if you need mentorship and how to lead in a practical way, putting theory to practice, but also recognizing the spiritual aspect, or what I like to call the supernatural aspect of leadership, you need to connect with me, because I'm telling you, other leadership theories are good, but they get enhanced when you lead from a place of presence. And so for those of you who are coaches or consultants, I want you to join me. I am part of the 15 speakers that will be speaking in this conference called Ready for More. It's a Kingdom Business Conference on October 21st and 22nd. And so on your screen, you'll see the link to go register and use my promo code Jamal22 so that you can get the discounted rate from this and attend this 2-day conference with the 15 speakers, and you will build your business according to kingdom principles. You won't be disappointed. All right. So join me at that conference next month. But also remember, if you say, I don't want to wait the next month, I need help today, Go to jamalmaxim.org/strategy session, get on my calendar, and you'll get help immediately on leading from a kingdom perspective, and I will help you accelerate your leadership and your impact. All right, so that's it for the video portion of this week's Principal's Office. Now, remember, join me tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, as we dig deeper in the Dismantling Spiritualism podcast, which is part of my assignment, my passion project. But I also have another video podcast that's going to be a pop-up this week. I'm still looking at my schedule, but it's going to get done. And I'm going to talk about the dangerous impact of spiritualism on education. As I'm sitting with these educational leaders, I'm hearing so many people are bringing in folks under the guise of SEL, thinking that they're going to get help or get programs for social emotional learning for the kids to help them learn how to regulate their emotions, recognize their emotions, deal with the trauma from the pandemic. And the people who are coming in are hypnotherapists, tarot readers, and all of these other folks, which is not good. And so, yes, you might say, well, you're being superstitious. No, I'm not. I'm just sharing the reality. Whether you choose to believe a reality or not doesn't mean it's any less true. All right, so you want to check me out because you want to recognize what these things are. I used to be a spiritualist, so I could tell you what they are, and I could tell you why I stopped believing that foolishness. All right, so as always, I want you to be successful and lead like a champion. Bye-bye.